Hey, I'm Jackie Fox, your new guild leader. Oh, I don't really know much about guilds, honestly, man. Dude, I just started playing this game, and the game told me that I needed to join a guild. Yeah, no, I get it. Like, look, everybody who walks in that door basically says about the same thing. Just have a seat in the chair and let me get you started with the onboarding video. Believe me, it's probably a little bit longer than you want it to be, honestly, but things are going to make a lot more sense after you watch it. So, before we have the rest of this conversation, let's just press this button right here and get started. Hey, I'm Jackie Fox. I've been playing this game for a while, and I have been leading a guild for pretty much the whole time that I've been playing in one way or another, either as a very supportive sub leader or having my own guild, which most of the game that I've played, I mean, I've been in leadership the entire time I've been playing, pretty much, with the exception of maybe like a couple months before I ingratiated myself to the first Discord community I joined. But I've been doing this for a while, and the way that this game works, there are players who stick around for a long time, and then there's churn. And hey, some of that churn might be prevented from watching this video, just to know what you're getting yourself into. Because, I mean, the first thing I want to say, to be completely 100% clear between you, me, and the audience, is that we are playing Final Fantasy, not Pokemon. I understand that there is an elemental system here. It's not, actually, to be fair to Pokemon, it's not as complex as theirs, and that's kind of to its credit in a lot of ways, if I'm being honest. Just a little bit easier to understand in that there is also not really a weapons triangle, but there are 5 additional attack types, and there are just so many things to level up and to just finish out. But the other point that I'm trying to make here, in addition to this game is complex and you need to kind of pay attention and listen to something like this, is that it's not really designed to catch them all. Really, you need to have the mentality more of a gym leader of what is my element and how can I throw curveballs in there too? Like, let's say you're a water player and maybe you want to have some ice. So that, just a little bit of ice to throw in there to kind of screw with the fire players. Not in that, you put the ice unit up front, you put the water units behind, they come, try to get themselves some ice, and they end up getting hosed. It's a great bait team. That's kind of how I would say recommend that you pick your first 2 elements to focus in. I wouldn't recommend picking elements that are like weak or strong to each other, but ones that kind of have like one level of distance between them. Like water, fire, ice. Okay, we're gonna go with water and ice and skip the fire. Or in another of my account's cases, I started with earth and decided to go on the other side of lightning to water. But instead of that, I ended up going on the other side of wind and ultimately becoming an ice earth player, which is a thing. Although I still do Celeste to front, just put a water unit up front, bait lightning teams. What I'm trying to get across though is that there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you real fast, and you're going to be trying to keep up with the Joneses. And first of all, that's kind of an unsustainable mentality within this game, given that the Joneses have been playing for several years and you're trying to play catch up in a game that's designed to create a fast lane, but only so fast of a fast lane for players that are willing to spend money. It's not a good cycle, it's not healthy, and it will ruin your finances. But if you can deal with that or you plan to be a free-to-play player, then just keep in mind that this isn't about collecting them all, this is more about being a gym leader. But also, if you are frustrated that I haven't really talked about game mechanics or anything other than how you should think about this game at 5 minutes into this video, this also may not be the game for you. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you find me to be long-winded and a bit too complicated for my own good, you're gonna hate the complexity of this game. And you aren't going to find many other people who are willing to explain it to you in detail the way I will. So, you should probably subscribe to my channel or quit this game. I don't know. No, I'm not saying that, like, if you don't like me, you won't like the game. I'm just saying this game has annoyed me with some repetition sometimes, especially the way it wants to be played, and you know what? That's just kind of part of the thing. If you can deal with that, you can deal with that. We can move on. Cool. Let's move on to the next thing. In addition to subscribing to my channel, since I'm going to have a new player focus, you should also pick a JP content creator. Personally, I watch Umbra Rays, but there's a lot to choose from over there making English content. Specifically, usually their channels are aimed at global players, often. At least the ones that are in English, I might say. But this gives you the opportunity to plan your account 4 months in advance, which is just the biggest heads up and the greatest thing. Obviously, holidays being timed a little bit differently between us and JP, and global exclusive units, things of that nature, bait, essentially, from Gumi. Those things are going to complicate stuff for us, but more or less we get a 4-month forecast for free, thanks to JP players toughing that shit out ahead of us. Beyond that, if you still have a lot of questions, and you probably will, you should join a guild. Well, now you're here, so that's good. But you should probably join a guild with an active Discord. If you don't have an active Discord, you should at least maybe be able to ask your I keep thinking War Leader. Jesus Christ, that's one of my account's names. You should be able to ask your guild leader some basic questions at least. It's really, really hard as a guild leader, I've got to say, to answer a question within the chat function within this game. So, yeah, you should get on Discord. But if you don't, or your guild does not have a Discord, for whatever reason, my guild has a Discord. We have a community space that's open for you. We're not the most talkative, but maybe if this channel gets bigger and a lot of people join, we will have a talkative community space. But also, you could probably look at other content creators. Generally, they have Discords as well. Anyways, my point is that you should have a community of people who understand this game around you and are willing to answer your annoying questions, even if it's at 3 a.m. Because if you've found that, then you will have a lot less headaches and waste a lot less of your resources in this game. Be teachable and be willing to ask questions instead of making stupid mistakes, because, and I'm not calling you stupid, because I've made the same stupid mistakes many times that I would advise you against, and you'll find people like me in every community who have fucked up at one point or another and realized our fuck-ups and are now very diligent defenders of you not fucking up the way that we did. Anyways, especially while my channel is small, I may have time to answer some of these questions, but generally speaking, if it doesn't relate to the content that I'm making or the content that another creator is making, then it's generally probably not super appropriate to ask a random YouTuber random question about Wotive, if only because there are so many of you that don't understand this game and are self-aware of that and willing to fix that, and there's only so few of me and other content creators that are willing to cover this game. So, you know, we're stuck with each other for the most part. If you don't like that, find a guild, find a Discord, and stop watching this video, maybe. Anyways, at this point, you have yourself a Wotive support system, both through getting the bulk information through YouTube channels covering both the specifics like I do, or general looks into the future, like a channel like a JP channel would, but also people you can talk to about specific questions, and a community. And again, if you have questions about communities, I will happily give you links in the comments and stuff. There's a lot of different types of free units in this game, and there's a lot of different types of players. So let's break down the units first. Your strongest units are typically going to be UR units, but more specifically, they're going to be 100 cost UR units. 100 cost UR units are much harder to pull. The rates for these are absolutely garbage, and we've all complained about it, but they are kind of the status quo now. And I mean, you're really gonna burn yourself out and your resources out trying to pull on 100 cost units so you can build your 100 cost team, even if that is the status quo. And it's not the status quo in every element, and there's definitely some room for older units to shine. I mean, Skahal is an 80 cost unit. He's doing great right now, even though I would say that 80 cost Okay, ranking UR unit cost. 100 cost, best. 90 cost, second best. Third best, 70 cost. Fourth best, 80 cost. The reason mainly being that either a lot of 70 cost units are ridiculously kind of undercosted and basically have 80 or 90 cost bulk or utility. I'm looking at you, Engelbert. You've been the best physical tank the entire time I've played this game. Even if you've been a little janky from time to time or maybe a bit slow, you have always been the guy who could take a physical hit, keep going, and then proc courage later while gathering hate. So my point is, as a 70 cost unit, Engelbert, and as a lot of the newer, I mean, there aren't new 80 cost units. They quit making those when they started 90 cost. Pretty much. I can't think of a new 80 cost unit. So the newer low tier units are actually the 70 cost, so they're actually better than 80 cost, oddly enough. And they save you that important 10 cost for cost limited, and I've said cost too many times. So now that you understand that, the rest of it should make sense to you. That is a little weird. Types of players though. So this is a game that rewards two things, your time and your money. They are not mutually exclusive. You can pay money and pay time and end up with a pretty good account. In fact, those are probably the best players in the game. You can also, as a free-to-play, just spend a lot of time picking up all the resources they give to you for free if you don't mind a little bit of repetitivity or min-maxing or I don't know, tedium. You can definitely get a lot of those resources that you need to play one or two elements completely free and like really grow at a very comfortable pace. Even running two elements and trying to specialize in both. Don't do it right away, but you know, after a couple months, once you've got your first team on its feet, then you can start worrying about that second element. I'm just saying, this seems to be a really sustainable way, even as a free-to-play, to play the game if you have a certain amount of time or willing to put in a certain amount of effort. You know, one thing I forgot to mention, if you are, in fact, a new player, and not just new to the guild or new to playing competitively, for one, there's a lot of daily login rewards for new players. I definitely think that for your first couple days of the game, you should log in daily, if only to collect those. They are very special. They do help you catch up in a lot of ways. But one of the things that you're going to start wanting to do, other than looking at free daily viz, which we'll talk about in this video, I definitely forgot to talk about free daily viz in this video, and you can see as it's getting pretty long, there's just a lot of things to cram in here. So I'm going to show you some footage from RNJ's free daily viz guide video, one of the recent ones. I don't think he still does these very often, but it really hasn't changed in terms of the daily free sources of Viz. I will link this in the description. If I don't, remind me in the comments and I'll do it, but I'm just going to let some of that play out so that you kind of get it, and then you can click the link to figure it out, and we're good. So you're also going to be looking at getting your way through the story, for one, because there is a lot of Viz and Awakening resources that are locked up in the story that, you know, each player will only be able to get once, and most players that you are trying to catch up with already have. So this is a very meaningful way to catch up in the game in terms of free Viz and free resources. Another way that's not as commonly advertised, is a little bit harder to understand, but I think makes perfect sense, is that there is, and I think it starts at like 200 Viz per person and then slowly works its way down every like 10 people. But every time you do a multi with a new person on a new account, up until the point where it just stops giving you Viz, and it'll peter down from like 200 per person to 100 per person to 50 per person to 20 per person to 10 per person. Then you won't really get any at all. But you can get several thousand Viz, several pulls really quickly using this method, and it's a really quick way to get free Viz. If you have no money and no time, I don't know, like, stop the video here, play something else, because you're probably not going to have a good experience. I mean, maybe if you see this purely as a collector's thing and you don't care that all of your units suck in the actual game, you're just happy to have little trophies of Final Fantasy games you played before, actually you should probably go to FFB, because, you know, if you're looking for trophies, they've got like all of the games at this point, and at this point it's going to probably be years before Wodev catches up with having like every Final Fantasy, even mainline, like covered within the game. So this, yeah, if those are your questions, this is probably not the game for you. I feel like I'm actively turning people, but you know, hopefully it'll be less churn. So for the folks that survived that first 14 minutes, build Lucio. He's completely free. Let's also talk about free characters, because there's only two that are completely free. Like, they give you all of the everything that you need to build them, with some common sense exceptions. I think Gil, but even in some cases not even that. I'm thinking like Prince Mont, they give you the Gil too. But Prince Mont and Lucio, any player, roughly from the beginning of their account, there are some equipment-based hurdles that you'll eventually run into with Lucio's missions. But you could probably, like, brand new player, play the first 9 Lucio missions, for sure. Get him up to level, like, 89, and then just use him as a beat stick alongside Prince Mont, and you'd probably be doing just fine. But also, I, again, have a video where I advise on a lot of free units, and we talk a little bit more about what that means, because often, maybe you'll get their shards, but all of the other awakening materials are certainly not free, and are definitely things that you're going to have to hoard, stockpile, and keep, even to build those units, which is why maybe you don't want to build all of the free units at once at first, even though I would generally recommend building the free units as they come out, especially the MR free units that will be available in the Farplane archives. As for collaboration free units, keep in mind that you are getting the first copy for free, and there's probably going to be a lot of ways to get shards for them over the course of their collaboration. You might be able to maybe 89 to 99 them without spending any viz on their shards, but that is increasingly unacceptable in this game. So what you're really going to want to do, if you actually want that character to be usable, is to build them to 120, and at that point you're going to have to spend some resources on them. It's not super hard to do with a free unit from a collaboration, but usually they're the best of the free units. Lucio is obviously a very, very special boy that everyone should build. I hope I've made that clear enough to you, new player. But let's move on. Because hopefully now you have a decent team. In at least one element, you're going to have at least 3 units at some point in the future. Like 140 units at some point in the future. But 120 at the moment. To really have kind of made it to what I even think of as the barrier of entry to PvP. Because after you've maxed the levels on your units, once you are playing on kind of roughly the same playing field, which is uphill, but, you know, there's only from here, you can only go up from here, I guess is what I'm saying. Once you have maxed leveled your characters, now it's going to be about, have you done all of the other things that I've been telling you to do? Have you gone through that hour-long video and learned all of the myriad ways that you can increase your character's power without talking about vision cards or espers? And we're going to get to that later in this video, because there really wasn't a place for it there. That video is already an hour long. After that, it's going to be a test of how many of those things have you done, instead of, you know, and strategic planning and all sorts of cool strategy, baiting people, all sorts of fun stuff, is really going to dictate your PvP experience from that point out. But really, I think that that's kind of like the early goal, the barrier to entry, kind of the place that you want to get is 3 max level units for PvP, and then you can get 2 more units to escort them through PvE, which is so much easier that if you have 3 units at the barrier to entry for PvP, you can probably do much PvE. So, since you've made it to this point, you have a team, we could start talking about stuff like building espers, because now you can probably clear the quests for them. And espers are another big part of, you know, what makes each unit special and how they are fully equipped. That I, again, didn't have time to get into, talking about everything else you could do to a unit. But in addition to that, you also should be able to do any of the Farplane archives that are related to equipment at this point. Now, for equipment farming, what you're going to want to do, especially as a new player, the first thing you're going to try, and this may not work, and maybe you'll stumble into it eventually, maybe you'll eventually get to the point where it starts working, but first you want to try to full clear this mission. The Brutal, specifically. That's your farming area. If there's a Nightmare, don't even try it, those are hard for me. But Brutal is going to be hard, as the name implies, especially for you, a new player, when it's most appropriate, but this is kind of the bread and butter for how you want to be farming equipment. So, what you're going to want to do is try to clear all of those extra missions. You're going to notice that one of those missions is going to correspond to an element. Try to play that element. It's a not so subtle hint that that element is going to do better on that map. It was made for that element to feel especially strong there. And usually whatever unit was released with it, in addition to being in that element, is going to do especially well there. And as long as you can complete the Brutal, you can do these in background. And the glory of doing these in background, not only all the everything, the massive quality of life change that the background repeat system has been to the game is really, really hard to describe, except to say that I'm probably cycling through phones half as quickly now because of the game ruining my batteries. That anecdote is based on absolutely nothing actually happening. So don't trust me on that. But what I am saying is that my phones have to run a lot less because it can run background repeats. If you can clear all the missions, and you can use skip tickets as clearly the fastest way to do it. But even if your team just drags through the background and only one person makes it to the very end, unlike normal repeats where you could fail, as long as you don't fail that first time through the background, then you can do as many repeats as you have pots for. And, I mean, even if it's like 15 minutes, you should still, if you wake up at like server reset, have enough hours in the day to background farm all the recipes, at least, that you would need for a new piece of equipment. If you can clear in like 15 minutes, and that is quite a long time for a level. So I'm pretty sure that as long as you can get your units to keep each other alive in auto, you can do this. It is going to be a bit of a barrier, and that's why I'm telling you to do a lot of other background research and stuff first. But if we're here, we're here, and you can start equipping your team. Now, you'll keep in mind that all of this stuff is MR. If you want the UR level stuff, that's all going to come as raid rewards. The raid system in this game is kind of annoying. The raid revivals are the best way to catch up. I have a video about why you as a new player should do raid revivals, but they're only relevant like once every 2 to 3 months, and they only stick around for a week. So, you know, focus on your MR stuff for now, at least for weapons, generally speaking, because there aren't a lot of UR weapons, particularly. But especially for weapons, you're getting some of the best stuff in the game out of the MR stuff. So don't feel bad about that. If that's all you can equip, you're still doing better than most people. So at this point, you have a community, you have a team, both for PvP, for PvE, you've got all sorts of free units, you've saved up and bought some units, whatever, all of that stuff. So at this point, we need to talk about vision cards and espers, because when you look at how much, because look, if you weren't thinking about, when a new unit comes out, and you want to pull it, I want you to ask yourself first, do I have 40 to 50,000 Visior? Because if you don't, and you still decide that you want to pull this unit, you are gambling, and we are having this talk right now, okay? If you do have that much Visior, then you are not gambling, you are going for the guarantee and hoping you get them along the way, which is luck, not gambling. Anyways, the pity for a unit is 40,000, and you're going to need a lot of extra shards. You can buy usually 10,000 worth of their shards, which is going to be 200 shards, from the shop on their banner, and then you're going to get probably another close to 200 shards from login rewards and their challenge board. So now we're at 400 already, and we're not even talking about trading in metals and other currencies and stuff. So you can see how it can be easy to build a unit on banner, even if you're willing to go to that pity level, because I mean, you still have a lot going for you doing that on banner and having saved up for it. But again, make sure you've saved up for it. If you are having trouble, or if you've kind of got your team and you're set and the new unit of your element doesn't really make sense for you, the best investment in the game are vision cards, and especially Esper vision cards. For one, vision cards are a 10k pity, so it's a lot easier to save up for than a unit. You could save up for 4 vision cards and 4 Espers potentially. An Esper doesn't come with every vision card, keep that in mind, but potentially 4 vision cards and 4 Espers for the price of guaranteeing 1 unit. So with the Esper VC combos, you're really getting a double value on that. You're essentially paying 5,000 to guarantee you each of those things, which is pretty awesome, especially if you're a newer player. You need newer vision cards of that element or that weapon type, and you need an Esper like the Esper that's being offered. Again, be picky. Choose things that work for your account. If you weren't sure what works for your account or for your element, that's why you have a Discord community. Ask them. Or follow my advice if I randomly happen to talk about your element. That's usually a good idea too. But other than that, you know, I'm just saying, like, you're at this point in the game, the only thing that you really need now are vision cards and Espers. That's, you know, you've got your units, you're set there. And really some of the best long-term investments in this game, personally, I think, because while units do come back up, where they'll be in the meta when they come back up in power is kind of relevant for a lot of them, and sometimes it can kind of keep them from coming back. So units can actually be a very fluctuating investment in this game, but vision cards and Espers tend to retain their power pretty well. And like, one thing that we kind of know with vision cards and Espers is if they, and again, this could age poorly and they could decide to do something next year, but based on everything I've seen so far, I don't think that there's going to be a new system of vision cards or a new system of Espers that's any more powerful as a maximum cap than what we currently have, without raising the cap for what we currently have as well. Like 4-star awakening for Espers could happen, Esper level 120 could happen, but if it does happen, the Espers that you already have will also have the option to awaken in that way. If vision card levels ever go up to 120, that's not going to be just for the new vision cards, that's probably going to be for all vision cards that you have. So again, they're a really good and safe investment. Vision cards in general, but also definitely vision cards that have Esper on them. Espers in general, also a really great investment. The other thing, the final thing that I think is a really great investment in your future, unless, and this is complete conjecture, I don't know that any of these things is going to happen. There's no real talk about any of these things happening other than a little bit of stuff. But if we ever potentially get Super Trustmasters and they take up the Trustmaster slot and they are stupid powerful, one of the ways that they may counterbalance use of a Trustmaster over use of a Super Trustmaster is by saying that Super Trustmasters are so powerful that they can't equip runes. And this would potentially power creep runes out of the situation after a certain period of time. But for right now, I can't imagine a way that they would really change that system very much that would make it more powerful, that would exclude what we currently have. So everything that we're using, or everything that we're seeing right now, really seems like a good investment. So I guess I'm kind of at the end of what I feel like a new player needs to know, but there is one thing that I do want to say off of that before I wrap things up, is that don't get caught up in kind of like meta gameplay, because there are different things that will come in and out of the meta based on new advances. And, you know, there's a constant war in this game of accuracy units versus evasion units. Technically, evasion units will always be able to find a team that can't hit them. And technically, accuracy teams are always going to be able to hit most any evasion team. But how that plays out in the meta and which of those is generally speaking going to win more times, which becomes important in a lot of matchups, that shifts based on a lot of factors and is very difficult to really get your head around without kind of seeing where JP is 4 months in advance. And I mean, especially now that they have Elena, like, we were so advanced in what like evasion cancer we had for such a long time, because we had Elena to go with our lock and JP didn't. But, you know, other than that, generally speaking, you can kind of get a sense of what the meta is going to be like in a couple of months, and how some of those larger issues of like defense versus defense penetration, or, you know, protect being the only thing that doesn't get removed very often, to all no, everything in the meta right now removes protect, so maybe you don't run protect. Those are going to be the finer intricacies, shit like that, and like agility tuning or AI tuning your PvP teams for particular maps. Those are going to be the more in-depth things. But at this point, other than like my new player playlist, I think you probably know all of the basic like hurdles and roadblocks, and you're probably in a hella good mindset to get started and like do really good at this game. And if you do really good at this game based on my advice, then like, hey, come back and tell me that you did a great job, because I am very happy to give you a hearty attaboy there in the comments, when your 120 or 140 team comes together. Like, I'm happy to be proud of you. Just you know, get a Discord so you don't ask me all of the questions. Again, though, if I make a video on the topic, that is fair game. Ask away. But if I don't, bug your guild leader, I guess. Anyways, see you in the next video. I am out of here.